For your wallet. Imagine a world without quarters, dimes, or dollar bills. This was ancient China. People still needed to buy things, and they needed to trade for food, tools, and beautiful silks. But they did not use coins like we do today. Instead, they used other things for money. This system was called barter. Barter is basically trading one good for another. You might trade a bag of rice for a pair of sandals. It was a simple system, but it had its problems. What if the sandal maker did not want your rice? The search for a better way to trade was just beginning, and it would change China forever. This early form of trade was based on need and agreement. A farmer with extra grain would seek out a potter with extra jars. They had to agree on how many jars were worth a certain amount of grain. This required a lot of negotiation, and it also made long-distance trade very difficult. Carrying heavy bags of rice or herds of animals across provinces was not easy. People needed something that was easier to carry. They needed something that everyone agreed had value. This need pushed ancient societies to find a common form of currency. It was the first step on a long road toward modern money. One of the earliest forms of money in China was the cowrie shell. These small, beautiful shells came from the sea, and they were rare in the inland parts of China. Their rarity made them valuable. They were also durable and easy to carry, and you could string them together. For centuries, cowrie shells were used to buy goods and pay taxes. In fact, the Chinese character for money originally looked just like a cowrie shell. This really shows how important these little shells were. They were China's first widely accepted form of currency, a treasure from the ocean that powered an empire. But even cowrie shells had their limits. As China's economy grew, more money was needed. Sometimes, there were just not enough real shells to go around. So, people started making imitations. They made shells out of bone, stone, and even bronze. This was an important idea, because it showed that money didn't have to be a natural object. It could be something made by people. This shift in thinking paved the way for the first metal money. The age of shells was ending, and a new age of metal was about to begin, setting the stage for the eventual rise of silver. The idea of making money led to a big change in China. People moved from using natural shells to using metal. Bronze was the metal of choice. It was strong and could be melted and shaped. Around 1000 BC, during the Shang Dynasty, the first metal money appeared. But these were not round coins. They were bronze versions of useful objects. You could find money shaped like a small knife, and you could also find money shaped like a little shovel or spade. These are called knife money and spade money. They were like miniature tools that you could use to trade for real tools or other goods. These strange shapes were not random. They represented the items that were commonly traded in different regions. In farming areas, spade money was popular. It looked like the farming tools they used every day. In areas known for hunting or fishing, knife money was more common. This made the money easy to understand for the local people. It connected the new currency to their daily lives. The government would stamp these metal tools with official marks, which proved they were real and had a certain value. It was a clever way to introduce a new form of money to the people. As time went on, these metal currencies became more widespread. During the Zhou Dynasty, their use expanded greatly. However, carrying around sharp metal knives and bulky spades was not very convenient. Imagine a pocket full of tiny shovels. Over hundreds of years, the shapes started to change. The knives and spades became smaller and more stylized. The blades got shorter and the handles turned into a ring. Eventually, the tool part disappeared completely. All that was left was the round part with a hole in the middle. This was the birth of the first round coin in China. These early round coins were made of bronze and had a square hole in the center. This design was very practical. The square hole allowed the coins to be strung together with a rope or a string. People could carry hundreds or even thousands of coins this way. This basic design, a round coin with a square hole, was so successful that it lasted for over 2,000 years in China. It became the standard cash coin. While bronze was the king of currency for a very long time, another precious metal was waiting in the wings, ready for its moment in history: silver. Silver was not new to China. The precious metal had been used for centuries. It was used to make beautiful jewelry, fancy containers, and special gifts for the emperor. It was valued for its beauty and rarity, but it was not used as money for everyday people. For a long time, silver was treated more like a treasure than a currency. It was stored in the form of ingots, which were large, boat-shaped or shoe-shaped blocks of silver. These were called saisi. They were used for large transactions like paying taxes or funding armies, but not for buying rice at the market. The first real move towards silver as a form of currency happened gradually. There wasn't one single day when China decided to switch. Instead, it was a slow process, driven by trade. During the Tang Dynasty, trade along the Silk Road was booming. Merchants from Persia, Arabia, and other parts of the world came to China. They brought with them their own silver coins, like the Sasanian silver drachms. Chinese merchants saw how convenient these foreign silver coins were, and they started accepting them in trades. This introduced the idea of using silver as a circulated currency. However, China did not start minting its own official silver coins for a very long time. The government preferred the bronze cash coin system. It was familiar and easy to control, but the people and the merchants had other ideas. The value of bronze coins could go up and down. Sometimes, the government would make too many, and their value would drop. Silver, on the other hand, was always seen as valuable. So people started using silver more and more in private trade. They would cut pieces from silver ingots to pay for things. This was a messy and inexact system, but it showed a growing demand for a reliable silver currency. The true beginning of government-issued silver coinage is often linked to the later dynasties. While some earlier dynasties experimented with silver pieces, it was during the Ming Dynasty that silver became central to the economy. This was largely due to the arrival of massive amounts of silver from the New World. Spanish galleons brought silver from mines in Mexico and Peru to the Philippines. From there, it flooded into China in exchange for silk and porcelain. This huge inflow of foreign silver, especially the Spanish dollar, forced the Chinese government to officially recognize silver's role in the economy, paving the way for its own silver coins. The Yuan dynasty, established by Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, marked a fascinating chapter in China's monetary history. The Mongols were rulers who had a vast empire, and they understood the importance of trade and a stable currency. While they are most famous for introducing paper money on a massive scale, they also played a crucial role in formalizing the use of silver. The Yuan government established an official exchange rate between their paper currency, called the Chow, and silver. This meant that a certain amount of paper money was legally worth a specific weight of silver. This official link between paper money and silver was a groundbreaking step. It essentially placed China on a bimetallic standard, where both paper and precious metal had recognized values. The government used silver sicey as the reserve to back its paper notes. This gave people confidence in the paper money, at least in the beginning. Large tax payments and official salaries were often calculated and paid in silver. The Mongols' control over the Silk Road also meant that silver from the Middle East continued to flow into China, reinforcing its status as a high-value commodity for large-scale transactions and government finance. However, the Yuan dynasty's grand experiment with paper money eventually ran into trouble. Later emperors printed too much paper money without enough silver to back it up. This led to massive inflation. The value of the paper money plummeted. People lost faith in it completely. As a result, they turned back to what they trusted: physical assets. They preferred to use bronze coins for small daily purchases, and more importantly, silver for anything of significant value. This economic crisis ironically cemented silver's position as the most trusted form of wealth. The failure of paper money made silver the de facto standard for the wealthy and for merchants. By the end of the Yuan dynasty, the Chinese economy was in chaos, but the lesson was clear: the people trusted tangible wealth. Bronze coins were for the common folk, and silver was for the rich and powerful. This set the stage for the following Ming dynasty, which would inherit a system where silver was already deeply embedded in the economy. The Yuan dynasty's paper money experiment, though a failure in the long run, had the unintended consequence of making silver more important than ever before. It was no longer just a treasure, it was now the bedrock of China's financial system. For centuries, China's silver currency was dominated by foreign coins and those bulky sicey ingots. But this changed dramatically at the end of the 19th century. China was facing immense pressure from Western powers, and the Qing dynasty, spanning from 1644 to 1912, realized it needed to modernize to survive. Part of this modernization included creating a national standardized currency that could compete with the silver dollars used by Western traders, like the Spanish and Mexican dollars. This, in turn, led to the creation of China's first modern machine-struck silver coin, the dragon dollar. It was, honestly, a powerful symbol of China's attempt to enter the modern world on its own terms. The first dragon dollars were minted in 1889 in Guangdong province. They were a huge success. The coins were well made and had a standard weight and purity, which made them trustworthy. On one side they featured a magnificent coiled dragon, a truly potent symbol of imperial power and Chinese identity. On the other side, the coin's value was written in both Chinese and English. This bilingual feature showed that the coin was meant for both domestic and international trade. For the first time, China had a silver coin that looked and felt like the money used by the most powerful nations in the world. The introduction of the dragon dollar was a major step. Soon other provinces began opening their own mints to produce similar silver coins. Each province often added its own small marks to identify where the coin was made, which, led to a fascinating variety of dragon dollars. While they all shared the iconic dragon design, collectors today can find subtle differences that tell a story about each coin's origins. This period saw a transition from the old, hand-poured silver sicee to modern, uniform coinage. It was a slow and sometimes chaotic process, but it was a necessary one for a changing nation. The dragon dollar became the workhorse of the Chinese economy in the late Qing Dynasty and the early Republic. It was used to pay soldiers, fund new industries, and conduct international trade. The dragon on the coin was more than just decoration. It was a statement. It declared that China was a proud and ancient empire, even as it was being forced to adopt Western technology and standards. The dragon dollar represents a pivotal moment in Chinese history, a bridge between the old imperial system and the new, uncertain world of the 20th century. It was, in a way, China's silver roar against a tide of foreign influence. The history of China's silver coins is filled with fascinating stories and characters. One of the most important figures was Zhang Zhidong, a forward-thinking governor-general in the late Qing dynasty. It was his vision and determination that led to the creation of the first dragon dollars. He saw how foreign silver dollars were dominating China's economy, and he argued that China must have its own modern mint. In 1887, he ordered state-of-the-art minting machinery from the Heaton Mint in Birmingham, England. He set up the new mint in Guangdong and insisted on the highest standards, making sure the dragon dollars would be respected worldwide. An interesting tale surrounds the design of the dragon itself. The dragon is a mythical creature with deep roots in Chinese culture, symbolizing power, good fortune, and the emperor. When designing the first national silver dollar in 1910, the master engraver, Luigi Giorgi, created a dragon that was considered too fierce and aggressive by some court officials. They felt its menacing look was undignified. The design was changed multiple times to create a dragon that was powerful, yet more serene and benevolent. This debate over the dragon's expression really shows how deeply the coin's symbolism was connected to the nation's identity and how it wanted to be perceived. The Spanish silver dollar, often called the pillar dollar or Corrales dollar, has its own unique story in China. These coins, minted in Mexico and other Spanish colonies, were so common in China for so long that they became a de facto currency. Chinese merchants would test their authenticity with a method called chopping. They would stamp the coin with their own small, unique Chinese character mark. This proved they had inspected it and confirmed it was real silver. Over time, these coins would become covered in dozens of these chop marks, making them look almost like a piece of abstract art. A heavily chopped Spanish dollar tells a story of its long journey through the markets of China. Another curious fact is about the memento dollar. After the 1911 revolution that overthrew the Qing dynasty, the new Republic of China needed its own money. One of the first silver dollars they issued featured a portrait of Sun Yat-sen, the first provisional president. On the back, the words memento and birth of Republic of China were inscribed in English. These coins were commemorative, intended to mark the historic event. They are also known as the six-pointed star dollars due to the decorative stars on the design. These coins were a powerful political statement, replacing the imperial dragon with the face of a revolutionary leader and celebrating a new form of government. Silver was not just money inside China, it was, in fact, China's link to the entire world. For centuries, starting from the Ming Dynasty, China had a huge trade surplus. The world wanted Chinese goods, especially silk, porcelain, and tea. However, China had little interest in the goods Europe had to offer. The one thing China did want was silver. This created a massive one-way flow of silver from the rest of the world into China. Historians call this the silver drain. A huge portion of the silver mined by the Spanish in the Americas, in places like Potosi, Bolivia, ended up in Chinese hands. This global demand for silver had a profound impact on the Chinese economy. The constant inflow of silver helped fuel economic growth and commercialization. Markets flourished, and a wealthy merchant class emerged. However, it also made China's economy highly dependent on the global supply of silver. When the flow of silver from the Americas slowed down, it could cause economic problems in China. Prices would fluctuate, and it could become harder to pay taxes, which were often required in silver. China's economy was now tied to events happening on the other side of the planet, from shipwrecks in the Pacific to political changes in Spain. The Opium Wars in the mid-19th century dramatically changed this dynamic. British traders, desperate to reverse the silver drain, started illegally selling opium to China on a massive scale. This led to widespread addiction and social crisis. It also, for the first time, reversed the flow of silver. Now, silver was flowing out of China to pay for the opium. This caused a severe economic depression. The value of silver shot up, while the value of bronze coins, which were used by peasants, plummeted. A farmer would need to exchange far more bronze coins to get the silver needed to pay his taxes, pushing many into poverty and rebellion. This painful experience really showed the dangers of being so tied to a single commodity. The opium-driven silver outflow was a key factor that weakened the Qing dynasty and highlighted its vulnerability to foreign economic pressure. The story of silver in China is therefore a story of globalization. It shows how the demand for a single precious metal connected China to the Americas, Europe, and the rest of Asia. It brought great wealth, but it also brought great risk. Silver was the engine of China's global trade, but it was also a double-edged sword that left the empire exposed to the turbulent currents of the world economy. Comparing Chinese silver coins to those from other parts of the world reveals, honestly, some fascinating differences in culture and economic philosophy. For most of its history, China's silver coin was not a coin at all, but the Sisi ingot. Its value was based purely on its weight and purity. It was a commodity, kind of like a bar of gold. In contrast, Western coins, like the Roman denarius or the British pound sterling, had a fiat value. This means their value was declared by the king or government. The face on the coin, the image of the emperor or monarch, was a guarantee of its worth, regardless of the exact amount of silver it contained. This difference really reflects two distinct approaches to money. The Chinese system emphasized the intrinsic value of the metal itself. Trust was placed in the silver, not in the government's promise. This is why merchants would weigh Sisi and even cut them into pieces. The Western system, on the other hand, emphasized the authority of the state. The coin was a symbol of the ruler's power, and to deface it was often a crime. When China finally did start making modern round coins like the dragon dollar, it was a major philosophical shift, adopting the Western concept of a standardized coin with a government-guaranteed value. The design of the coins also tells a story. Western coins have a long tradition of featuring portraits of their rulers. From Alexander the Great to Queen Victoria, the ruler's face personalized the currency and asserted their authority. Chinese coins for thousands of years avoided human portraits. Their bronze cash coins featured only written characters, the emperor's reign name. Even the first dragon dollars featured a mythical beast, not the emperor. It was only with the birth of the Republic in 1912 that the face of a political leader, Sun Yat-sen, first appeared on a nationally circulated Chinese coin, directly borrowing from the Western tradition. Another key difference was the system of denominations. Western currency systems often had a clear and integrated hierarchy of gold, silver, and copper coins. For example, a certain number of silver shillings equaled 1 gold pound. China, for most of its history, operated a dual currency system that was not formally connected. The common people used bronze cash coins for daily life, while the government and wealthy merchants used silver by weight for large transactions. There was often no fixed official exchange rate between the two. This two-metal system was unique to China, and reflected the vast social and economic divide within the country. The age of silver currency in China came to an end in 1935. The nationalist government officially abandoned the silver standard and introduced a new controlled paper currency called the Fapi. This move was part of a global trend away from precious metal-backed money. The government required all citizens to turn in their silver coins and ingots in exchange for the new paper notes. This marked the official end of a chapter that had lasted for centuries. The silver coins that had powered an empire, connected China to the world, and defined wealth for generations were now relics of a bygone era. Today, these historic silver coins are no longer used for shopping. Instead, they have found a new life as treasured collectibles. Numismatists, people who study and collect coins around the world, seek them out. Each coin is a miniature piece of history. A dragon dollar from a specific province tells a story of Leching modernization. A Sun Yat-sen memento dollar captures the hope of a new republic. A heavily chopped Spanish dollar speaks of bustling trade on the Canton waterfront. For collectors, these coins are not just pieces of silver. They're tangible links to the fascinating and turbulent history of China. The legacy of China's silver coins also lives on in the Chinese language. Many phrases related to money and banking still have their roots in the silver era. For example, the Chinese word for bank, yinhang, literally means silver house or silver office. This shows how central silver was to the concept of finance and wealth. Even though the currency has changed, the language retains a memory of the time when silver was king. These linguistic fossils are a constant reminder of the deep economic and cultural impact that silver had on Chinese society. In conclusion, the journey of China's first silver coins is a story of transformation. It began with foreign coins arriving on the Silk Road and ended with modern, machine-struck dollars bearing the dragon of an ancient empire. These coins witnessed the rise and fall of dynasties, fueled global trade, and connected the lives of Chinese farmers to silver mines in the Americas. They were at the center of wars, rebellions, and revolutions. Today, as these silver discs rest in museums and private collections, they serve as silent, shining witnesses to China's long and dramatic march into the modern world. Their story is, in many ways, the story of China itself.